Well, welcome back to the Launchpad. This week we're covering everything Starship, Starlink, SpaceX's Inspiration 4 mission, and more, so let's get right into it. This week was actually pretty quiet compared to what 2021 started like, with only 2 orbital launches. The first was on January 29th with the Long March 4C from China, and the second was Starlink 18 on February 3rd. And yes, I said Starlink 18. Starlink 17 has been on the pad, ready to go, and it keeps getting delayed a day or two at the time, and even currently doesn't have a new launch date. Many are speculating that this is due to the booster being reused multiple times. This would be the only second time SpaceX has launched one of its Falcon 9 boosters for the 8th time on a mission, and SpaceX has said the boosters were supposed to last about 10 launches, so maybe booster 1049 is just starting to show its age. With the launch of Starlink 18, SpaceX did set a new record of the fastest turnaround time for a Falcon 9 booster at just 27 days, beating their own record of 38 days. Elon has said many times the key for humans to live and work in space is the rapid reusability of the Falcon 9, and it sure is proving that. If everything goes well, that same booster could fly in the first week of March, but if they go and beat their record just by a couple days again, we could see the same booster fly twice in the same month. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Before we get deep into our 2 top stories for this week, we want to make sure that you take a moment, click the subscribe button. A few of you have let us know that you haven't seen our new videos being posted, so make sure when you click the subscribe button, you also ring the bell to get notified, but also have our videos show up in your YouTube feed so you never miss when we go live or post a new weekly update or story. We've set a goal of 1,000 subscribers before SN10 launches, so help us out, share the stream, and let us hit that goal. Once we hit the 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be starting our giveaways, and we have a couple big ones planned right off the bat. Now on to our first big story of the week, and that would be Starship. SN9 has finally completed its high-altitude test, following a number of launch attempts and some struggles with the FAA. The first launch attempt was on Monday the 25th of January, and that attempt was scrubbed and the launch was moved to Thursday the 28th. On the 28th, everything was proceeding really well. Evacuation order was in place, the TFR and safety zones were activated, the pad was clear, and at one point we even saw SN9 starting to be fueled. But then the news broke that the FAA was restricting SpaceX and not allowing them to proceed, and this led to a multi-day delay of Starship SN9 as the FAA and SpaceX went back and forth. A few hours after the delay, Elon made a rather shocking tweet calling out the FAA and challenging that they were actually the problem and they weren't advancing their systems to match the new style of space exploration and travel. Now, being SpaceX not wanting to waste any time, they quickly continued with the road closure and rolled SN10 out to test stand A. This was the first time we ever saw 2 fully stacked Starships side by side and gave us a really great visual of what the Moon and Mars will eventually look like. Here with Brendan Lewis's latest Starship graphic, you can see the current status of all the Starship prototypes, and there's been a few big changes since our last update. Starship SN12, 13, and 14 have officially been scrapped following the data from SN8 and SpaceX knowing they were going to get data from SN9, 10, and 11, which use the same current model and design of Starship. SpaceX has made the decision to scrap those and move straight forward to SN15, which Elon confirmed late last year that SN15 will have some major improvements. What they are, we're still not sure yet, but we're hoping to have some updates from him. Also, another addition on this chart you can see was the addition of SN7.2. This small test tank was used by SpaceX to test the pressure capability of using only 3mm thick materials for the structure of Starship rather than the 4mm currently being used in all the Starship models. Should SpaceX be able to go down to 3mm, they can eliminate a lot of weight and help either bring more payload to orbit or be more efficient on its fuel. The stacking of Super Heavy 1 is coming along and is past the halfway point in the high bay, and parts of Super Heavy Booster 2 have been spotted on the SpaceX grounds. Now, back to Starship SN9. Finally, after days of waiting and lots of speculation on Twitter, in the middle of the night leading into February 2nd, the FAA approval came down, and Twitter went crazy as SpaceX confirmed their next attempt was going to be on that same day. On February 2nd, everything was going to plan, propellant was loading, it was looking good, and then we saw a truck driving around in the exclusion zone. Shortly later, the sheriffs found the truck and escorted it from the ground. Starship was put into a hold and fueling halted, but fueling resumed and the attempt continued. SpaceX went live on their channel with the official views of the test, and then moments later, the moment we had waited weeks for, Starship SN9 finally took to the sky. During the 6+ minute flight, everything was looking to be going as planned, but the big question in everyone's mind was, would SN9 do what SN8 couldn't do and land? Land softly, and we got our answer.
Start 2 engines, flip the vehicle vertical, then transition to 1 engine for the landing burn.
No, it couldn't. SN9 actually landed harder than SN8, sideways, aimed in a different direction, and threw a lot of pieces in many directions. This happened due to the second Raptor engine that did not ignite during the landing burn, where in SN8 it ignited and then failed. Now, following the test and the safing of the pad, we did see the crews going out and start to clean up the pad and the surrounding area, as it is a wildlife preserve, but also inspect SN7.2 and SN10 as they were very close. In the following days, testing of 7.2 continued, and SN10 has now received its Raptors, so we can assume that it has not been damaged and they are continuing with its testing. Elon later tweeted a couple days later about, why didn't you just light all 3 and then turn one of the engines off? And his response, I think, says it all. We were too dumb. But with a number of tweets from Elon, he has confirmed that they're going to make that new attempt, and they're going to make it right away with SN10. When they land, all 3 will ignite, and depending which engine is higher, if they have 3 good engines, they will shut down the engine that is the one that's the least required. Should they need the second engine, it's there, and they can attempt to make a safe landing. I think this is a really smart move on the hands of SpaceX because, we launch a orbital Starship and we're sending it to the moon or Mars, especially Mars, where it's a multi-month journey. We don't know what's going to happen to that engine. I think it's smarter to have all 3 going. That way, if one does have a failure, you've got your backup already spuled up. Because they do this flip maneuver in the last couple hundred meters of landing. So there's no second chance, no second attempt. You are landing one way or another. If everything goes well with the second FAA safety investigation, we should see Starship SN10 launching hopefully by the end of the month, setting a new record for SpaceX in their development of the Starship system. Another investigation was initiated by SpaceX immediately following the crash of SN9, and this is to do with regulations in the United States, but also just how the FAA and SpaceX are working together to ensure that they're not just launching rockets and crashing them. They want to be learning from what's happening, what caused the issue, things like that. So there is an investigation following any failure that happens, and that's just the protocol for it. Now, what happened with SN9, we don't know why that protocol took longer than it probably should have, but they're moving ahead. They're prepping SN10, and SN11 is starting to finalize its stacking in the high bay, and we might see it moved out to the pad in the next couple of weeks. Now, our second story this week, and probably the biggest story of the week, was the announcement of Inspiration 4, the first ever fully civilian crew mission to space. This mission was announced on Monday afternoon, and on Wednesday we sat down for a one-on-one exclusive interview with Jared Isaacman, the commander and benefactor of the Inspiration 4 mission, and here is a quick clip from that interview.
I happen to think the crew selection process is one of the coolest parts of this whole mission, and that we are making it available to everyday people. The 4 crew members, as you know, there's only 4 people that can fit in the Dragon spacecraft, will represent mission pillars of leadership, hope, generosity, and prosperity. And you don't have to go to Inspiration 4's website and make a donation and want to go to space. You can also just make a donation to support what is a really important cause. I mean, I think that's what the best part about Inspiration 4 is. Why we named it Inspiration 4 is we're trying to inspire, the world as to infinite number of possibilities, what we can do up in space for sure, but also what we can accomplish down here on Earth.
For the full interview, head on over to our YouTube channel to see our full exclusive interview with Jared Isaacman about the Inspiration 4 mission. Inspiration 4 will leave from Kennedy Space Center's historic Launch Complex 39A, which is the same embarkation point for the Apollo, Space Shuttle, and the new U.S. Crew Dragon missions to the International Space Station. Inspiration 4 will travel in a low Earth orbit for 4 to 5 days, and it will continually eclipse more than 90% of Earth's population. Inspiration 4 will help raise awareness and funds for the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And if you're an American resident and you're watching this, head on over, watch the interview, and then go to inspiration4.com because you have a chance to secure your seat in the generosity or the prosperity seat of Inspiration 4. That's right, you could be getting suited up and going to space by the end of the year. The first ever commercial civilian space flight commercial aired during the Super Bowl yesterday, and we've got that clip here for you now. Check it out.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
This fall, Inspiration 4 launches as the first all-civilian mission to space. And you could be on board.
Up above the world so
Visit inspiration4.com for your chance to go to space.
Well, Inspiration 4 is really pushing us forward and entering a new era of what human spaceflight and exploration looks like, and even Jared Isaacman said this is just the beginning of humans going to space as civilians. And on February 7th, SpaceX set another record. It seems like they're either setting or breaking new records every week, but this one was for Crew 1 on the Resilience capsule. They broke the record for the longest U.S. space capsule mission since the Skylab 4 84-day mission set in 1974. The Crew 1 aboard the International Space Station connected with Skylab astronaut Ed Gibson to remember his mission and talk about the future of humanity. It's really awesome seeing these previous missions connecting with current missions and recognizing our history as we speed forward to becoming a multiplanetary species. Well, this week was pretty much SpaceX in the news week, but let's take a look at the launches scheduled coming up in the next 7 to 10 days. On February 12th, we're expecting to see Starlink 19 launch, and then hopefully a few days after that, we'll see Starlink 17 finally lift off from the pad. On the 15th of February, we're also expecting a Soyuz launch of the Progress Mission 16. And that's it. That's this week's update. Before we end, make sure to click to that subscribe button so you don't miss next week's episode and our live coverage of Starship testing. And click the like button. It really does help this video reach more people out on YouTube. If you haven't yet, head on over to the Launchpad shop. We just released a bunch of new apparel, and everything from that goes directly back into helping make these episodes and our live coverage and expanding our team to bring you more exclusive views and interviews around the world of the new space flight and space engineering that we're seeing happen. We will see you next week. This is Zach with the Launchpad signing off.